colleagues, good evening all. The people over the last few days who did little or nothing are the loudest in this house. And I'm happy they stood to identify themselves. Nothing they did for people across this country. The loudest, but they did little or nothing for the people of Guyana. If you listen to the contributions over the last few days by those on the opposition side, you would believe that they did so much and enough to be able to be in the space of government. It is indeed their lackluster performance, their lack of vision, their lack of creativity that have them in the opposition benches today. And they've made my job so easier, very easy, by standing to identify themselves. Mr. Speaker, APNU AFC had a fix for every single thing. They created every single plan in this country, but failed to implement the plan that they created. Every project of the People's Progressive Party Civic, everything that was brought on stream, they claim it was theirs. So many plans that never saw the light of day. Sudden love for people. Suddenly, people have new meaning to me. I had loved them all along, never had the chance to perform. Wake up,
Minister,
suddenly, I'm in love.
You've proven the point. You have a great voice for singing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad that you admire my singing voice. But wake up suddenly. People are suddenly in love with people just because they're out of power. Again, it is a demonstration and a way of fooling people yet again. They did this before and they will continue to do it because it is just who they are, and they can't take the truth, and they walk out because the truth is more powerful than they're walking out. They're walking out. They're walking out. They're walking out. All of these things, Mr. Speaker, and because all of the tactics they use over the years, and thankfully we have in the information age these days allow instantaneous information to reach people across the world. So it is a little difficult, but of course not impossible for them to continue their web of untruth and misinformation, and they spew all across this country all sorts of information, and they come here, and at least you would believe that people who come here to debate the national budget would at minimal have the basic facts and would be accurate and truthful about what obtains in this country and what ought not. These are people today that just a short few years ago tried to hold on to power, grip power out of greed, and of course they would have us believe that they weren't there It wasn't them. It's a Shaggy. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I want to tell you, those members on the opposition, that at the end of the day, the people across this country are sensible enough, enlightened enough to be able to detect all of your trickeries and your games and your shenanigans. I made it my duty over the last few days to speak specifically to people who have been following these debates, and young people, mind you, and it is telling how brilliant and intelligent they are. Mr. Speaker, before I go on further, let me thank, first of all, allow me to wish you and your family and all the members of this House and their families, the staff of the National Assembly and their families, a bright and prosperous new year. Mr. Speaker, we've started this year 2024 on an extremely positive note. As my colleague, the senior minister in the office of the President with responsibility for finance and public service, Dr. Ashni Singh and his awesome team have lifted us onto Pakaraima's peaks and Roraima's plains of hope for the future of our country and its peoples. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2024 has shattered every conceivable ceiling Guyana has ever been constrained by since her independence, with provisions for the exponential growth of every sector and measures that create an enabling environment for our young people to emerge from poverty and their various and other social strata and begin thriving. The budget opens up vistas of opportunities for citizens in every corner of our country to climb onto paths that are sure to lead to wealth creation and ultimately to prosperity for all. And I'm on this subject. You know, we hear every single day a reference that has become so popular. Guyana is this oil-rich country. We have all the money we need. We have everything that we need. And it is used in a way and manner to suggest that we are not, as a government, doing enough with all of this money. But the truth is, we are just not there yet. We are not yet rich. There's still a journey along that will get us to the point where our earnings from the oil resources would become much better than it is today. So this thing that we have all of this money and so we could do everything is just, again, the way of the opposition in trying to spread this mischief that the Guyana we are in today is the Guyana and the government can be able to afford everything. We need to be very careful. You can imagine, any one of us can imagine, if this new AFC government, and God forbid if they were, in government over the last 3 years, by now we would be with our begging bowls all across the Caribbean and the world, as everything would have already been done empty, because all they know is to squander. All they know is to splurge and to become so occupied with the fanciful things without using sense and intelligence to manage in a prudent fashion. I therefore wish, Mr. Speaker, to unequivocally commend Dr. Singh and his team, their excellencies, the President and the Vice President and the entire cabinet, and of course the leadership of our party for actualizing the vision of the People's Progressive Party Civic through the crafting of this groundbreaking, game-changing national budget. Mr. Speaker, since the reading of the budget last week, opposition politicians have been huddling in their various rabbit holes with their Kool-Aid handlers. And I assure you, they were not trying to comprehend its magnitude and its features that aim to bringing benefits to people and feeding Guyana's transformation pathway that is sure to create empowerment for every single Guyanese, including their constituencies. They were instead busy nourishing the disease of jaundice that has infected their eyes, casting visions of only doom and gloom since their fall from grace in 2020. For the duration of this debate, Mr. Speaker, they will jump high and low here in pretense, claiming to be representing their constituents, when in fact, these same self-righteous masqueraders are the ones who place a noose for more than 200 taxes around the people's necks, took away our children's grant, took away electricity subsidies from our pensioners, took away water subsidy from pensioners, took away their promise to double the old age pensions. They took away people's opportunity to buy used cars, took away people's right to land and housing support, took away people's opportunity to benefit from cheaper electricity from the hydro project. They mercilessly took away sugar workers' right to earn a living, Mr. Speaker. The APNU AFC government took away the livelihoods of small miners, small loggers, and small farmers, and in one of the most unpardonable acts of cruelty, as they did to the sugar workers. APNU AFC took away jobs. You remember, we were at a level where 30,000 jobs were lost during their reign. Development resources they took away, land they took away, and the very dignity of our Amerindian brothers and sisters they took away. Mr. Speaker, just when we thought the coalition partners had lowered themselves to the pit floor of uncaring governance, they then brazenly attempted to take away our hard-earned democracy, following their deserving defeat at the 2020 national elections. Mr. Speaker, in the first year of our return to government, and consistently until now, the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration restored the dignity to our Amerindian citizens, restored the dignity of our sugar workers, restored the dignity of our senior citizens by putting back their water and electricity subsidies, increasing their pension by 75%, and this will reach our promised 100% by 2025. We've restored our citizens' constitutional rights to housing with over 30,000 house lots distributed today to hundreds of houses and hundreds of houses built. We have restored the livelihoods of small farmers, loggers, and farmers all across this country. We've provided economic empowerment, pathways for our women folk and single mothers. And Mr. Speaker, we've restored our children's grant. And of course, we have worked to improve the lives of people right across this country. But we are not saying that we have done it all. All of this is part of a process in which we started out in 2020, picking up the pieces, correcting the mistakes, fixing things, and working every single year to improve the lots, to improve our assets, to improve the lives of people. And it is a process. It will not happen overnight. And none of us on this side hold the view that everything is hunky-dory. Everything will happen all at once. But the certainty of what we are saying is that we are making strides and we are making progress and we are working for the development of people, and it is visible every single day across this country. Our people's lives are getting better. Mr. Speaker, when Londoners and people from all across this country begin enjoying paved surface of the Intercontinental Highway to Brazil and its 4-lane bridge from Wismar to Mackenzie, when commercial trading begins to intensify through that road and investors roll in to set up shops in Region 10 and elsewhere, when the people will know that those are empowering benefits for this and other budgets, certainly the opposition will say it amounts to nothing. Mr. Speaker, when residents of Region 2 and 3 and citizens from all across our country begin feeling the benefits of the new 4-lane fixed bridge across the Demerara River and the gas to energy power project with a 50% reduction in electricity costs, eventually, you better believe it, they will know it's because of this and other budgets fulfilling the manifesto promises of the People's Progressive Party civic government. We will all enjoy first-class healthcare services, better quality education facilities, standards and opportunities including debt write-offs and free university access on campus and online better community pathways, roads and intra-regional highways, farm-to-market roads and value-added infrastructure support, better recreational and sporting facilities, and, Mr. Speaker, better security domestically and across our sovereign territorial boundaries. Mr. Speaker, the people can already see the experience of this transformation. And, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I have a few young people across there who have given permission to use their testimony and would like to testify of the work of this government, the progress we're making as a society, and their faith and belief in our governance model, our structure, our budgets formulation, and I thank them for being here because I didn't just want to use names without having the faces right before us. And, Mr. Speaker, young Dr. Vishal Joseph, a 30-year-old mixed-race Guyanese, seated over there in a sharp blue suit, was coerced into supporting the coalition government in 2015. But when he began criticizing the cruel anti-working class policies, they quickly sidelined him. This is his written testimony. I quote, I have unshakable confidence in President Ali and the PPPC astute leadership, driving remarkable development for our country. As a young Guyanese, blessed to benefit directly from the People's Progressive Party's civic, expansive vision in business, health, education, and social development, I can personally attest to the power of placing opportunity and equity at the heart of our collective ascent and the advancing national development. This government's defining ethos of inclusive, participatory governance has provided invaluable platforms for youth to directly apply our expanding expertise in service to fellow Guyanese. The government's participatory policy-making processes actively solicit and elevate insights from youth, women, indigenous groups, and all people seeking a voice in national development. I have experienced this firsthand through good faith advocacy engagements with ministers who demonstrate that grassroots engagement is crucial to inclusive progress. And you know what they will say if they were here, but perhaps even later when they listen to what I had to say, that young Vishal Joseph was paid money to come here. So disparaging, I bet you. That's how. No one out of their own volition and free will can give a testimony so glowing about the People's Progressive Party civic government. That's how they are. Disrespectful. I also, Mr. Speaker, want to share the story of Mr. Courtney Benn Jr., another black young man fully empowered under the People's Progressive Party civic government, and who is actively contributing to national transformation. This is his testimony. I have had a unique privilege of assessing both of the parties that have governed Guyana over the past 30 years, and even before the People's Progressive Party civic returned to power in 2020. It had become crystal clear for most rational Guyanese that this is the party with a vastly superior approach to the socio-economic transformation of Guyana. This contention goes way beyond the hollow argument that about the government having access to all revenues, because even while we were sure of the coming oil money after 2015, the necessary transformative vision was non-existent. Guyana has in fact now been placed on a rapid path to its transformation, which in a broader sense is the pre-2015 development strategy of the People's Progressive Party civic on steroids. From my perspective, the macroeconomic vision of the government to underpin the transformation with unprecedented expansion of the traditional sector and the private sector, the build-out of targeted critical infrastructure and world-class education and healthcare is a masterstroke of immeasurable proportions that, to my mind, will eradicate poverty in short order while creating opportunities every step of the way for Guyanese of every race, class, and creed to empower themselves for intergenerational wealth creation. Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, the other two persons share similar views and have similar testimony, which I will not go through at this time because I'm very fearful that the time will go on me too quickly. So I will save their testimony, but definitely you can rest assured that their testimonies are similar to the two that I read at this podium. Thousands of Guyanese, every part of this country, Mr. Speaker, believe that we are making progress. And you know what is so funny or comical of the opposition is that they will come here and argue nothing is being done. Nothing that is being done has an impact on anyone. To me, that is the most nonsensical type of argument to come from anyone. Not that, okay, you are doing X in this particular community, but we believe that you can do 5 times more or change this priority and add to something else, or something that at least adds up to some sort of criticism that you could even consider. Nothing. It is sheer emptiness. And that is what is worrying. I spoke to a student yesterday. You know what the student said? At least in a debate, and the references to all sorts of things about poverty levels and whatever levels and who are not getting this and that, you would imagine that an opposition would at least cite some study, some survey, something as the basis for those arguments. Oh, majority of the people in poverty, nothing is working. I mean, what sort of people operate in this way and fashion? What sort of people? And I don't necessarily want to give a particular name to the opposition, and you know, but you know, anyway. Mr. Speaker, well, potter brains, potter brains, you know, yeah, potter brains. Now, you know, the truth is, Mr. Speaker, we have in this country one of the best examples of a government. In the Caribbean, we are admired for the type of leadership model that we use to develop our country. We're admired around the world. Never before I have felt so proud being a Guyanese. The proudest moment, wherever you go, right across the world, people who are following the happenings in Guyana are so complimentary about what is taking place. And I don't expect the opposition to come here and not criticize us. So don't get me wrong, but at least be constructive. At least say things that are sensible. Say things that make sense, that people can follow, believe at least, and can act on. Mr. Speaker, the party, once teeming with intellectual prowess, that's the PNC, now depends on lowly economic advice from an interloper, a little wannabe intern. That's the kind of deficit in substance that has characterized and continues to shape the low points in the lives of the Cadiz et al. Of all the irrelevant parties desperately hungering for power again. And the sweet, fat salary lifestyles that they once had, supported by multi-million travel and eating bills and conflict of interest contracts to their own businesses, which they soaked up during the 5 long years, the orgies of rape to our treasury, they put this country through misery. Misery. Misery, Mr. Speaker. Again, orgies. Again, Mr. Speaker, all over this fast-growing economy of the world, all across the small and medium-sized business community, and the burgeoning private sector, Guyanese are saying never, never, never again to the intellectual bankruptcy across every home benefiting from the Because We Care grants. Once again, we are hearing the resounding cry, never again, to cruel, mean-spirited, and selfish social policies. Never again across the Gold Scholarship beneficiary community. Never again is the resolute stance of the 30,000 house lot recipients. Never again is the screams from our sugar workers. Never again to more than 200 draconian taxes on the back of poor people. Never again to billions wasted on satisfying their ego of a sanctimonious gangsters, leaders who cared only about themselves. Never again to rigged elections. And surely, Mr. Speaker, never again to a party in government bereft of ideas and cursed with a Durban Park kind of imagination. Mr. Speaker, by the end of 2025, By the end of 2025, bruised from a bigger beating and convinced of their perpetual relegation to that side of the house, even they, the master of their fate and the captains of their souls, will resign themselves to the never again vacuum. Wretchedly residents, never again vacuum. Mr. Speaker, this budget, all across the country, and I tabulated last evening the comments on social media, those appearing on television, TV.
Honorable Minister, my tabulation says you need an extension to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable member be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation, please.
Thank you, Minister Parag. Honorable Minister McCoy, 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and I have so far come up with 736 Guyanese who are speaking positively. And this was just a quick random sample. 736 Guyanese who speak positively about this budget and this government and the development trajectory on which we are on. 736, just by randomly checking. Mr. Speaker, most Guyanese understand by now that the rise in the cost of living across the globe is not the making of the People's Progressive Party civic government and not unique to Guyana. The key difference here is what the government is doing about it. Mr. Speaker, let me use as an example. Suriname is now ranked as a high degree of hardship location for expatriates living there, much less the citizens. Mr. Speaker, a recent analysis described our eastern neighbor as now plagued with the ever-rising cost of living posed by persistently high inflation, plunging more than 60% of the population under the poverty. Mr. Speaker, it's not much different in Trinidad and Tobago. On October 2023, Trinidad Daily Express report cited the rising cost of living as being the leading factor for the paycheck-to-paycheck dilemma facing households. The report says some months families sacrifice groceries to meet other basic needs, prompting economists to assert that the middle class is gradually disappearing from the once oil-rich nation, while one leading psychologist there believes that the situation is directly impacting mental health. I take no pleasure in highlighting the perils being faced by our other CARICOM territories, and I mean no offense to their governments and our brothers and sisters there. Suffice it to say, Mr. Speaker, the politicians here in Guyana must acknowledge these common cross-border realities plaguing the world with honest and realistic narratives to their support base. Mr. Speaker, the government of the People's Progressive Party Civic does not hide behind any cloak of political expediency, nor do we wear blinders in delivering on our mandate and when we're dealing with the bread and butter situations of Guyanese. We are constantly consulting with our stakeholders and people right across this country and reviewing our policies and programs to address all of the pressing issues, including the issues of cost of living, and of course, to make sure that we have sustainable economic and social growth while providing real-time cushioning interventions to ease the cost of living burdens for every citizen. Mr. Speaker, I can quickly roll over to my portfolio. When we assumed office, the Information and Public Affairs in 2020, the state media communication apparatus was fully clothed again in the Kabaka era and the pre-1992 Congress place garbs. Extensive reorientation was done with the staff. We continue to invest in training programs to ensure that our people who are deployed in the state media are improving in their standards and are serving our national good in sharing information and communicating with the public. Mr. Speaker, because of the time constraint, I wish I could say much more here. But the bottom line is, Mr. Speaker, that this budget is a budget for all the people of Guyana. If you go through this budget, every part of our country has something to their benefit, something to enhance their lives, something workable for their families, something for the pensioners, something for the youth, something for everyone. And I therefore, Mr. Speaker, commend the 2024 national budget as a superstar budget, a budget for everyone, and a budget that will make a difference, a huge difference in the lives of every single Guyanese continually and consistently. Thank you, and I commend this budget 2024 as the budget worthy of everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.